Hi everyone, welcome to Algebra 2, Lesson 2-5, Example 3. Solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. How can you solve 0 equals x squared minus 2x plus 3 by completing the square? So in example 2, we talked about completing the square, the process of making a perfect square trinomial, right? So here we're going to use the same method, but we're going to solve until the end. So we're going to figure out what the values of x are going to be. Right? So first of all, you want to see the equation and see if it's a perfect square trinomial. It is not. So we're going to use the method that we just learned. We're going to subtract 3 on both sides, get rid of the constant so that we can add the constant that we want. We're going to add negative b over 2 squared, which is 1 in this case. Negative 2 over 2 squared would be negative 1. So we're going to it will be positive 1. So we're going to add 1 on both sides, and then we're going to use the perfect square to factor this out easily. X minus 1 squared would be equal to negative 2. And that means x minus 1 just has to be, it's going to be the same number, right? That makes negative 2 as a product. So in order to do that, you want to square root both sides and figure out, solve for x. But if we square root this side, we're going to have a negative 2. And that is not going to be a real number, right? So then if we square root this side, it's fine. It's just going to be x minus 1, and there's no problem. But we know both negative numbers and positive numbers are going to work. So we're not going to forget adding plus or minus sign on the other side, so that the solution is either the positive or the negative number of that, because both would work for a square. And then since it is going to be square root of negative 2, right, plus or minus square root of negative 2, we automatically know, we naturally know now, it's going to be square root of negative 1, which is I. And then you just have square root of 2. So that's it. Your x is going to be 1 plus or minus I square root of 2, because you have to solve for x. You're going to add 1 on both sides, so then you have a complex number, 1 plus I square root 2 and 1 minus I square root 2 as the two solutions for this quadratic equation. All right, so this is how you solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. Let's look at try number 3 on the next page. So solve the following equations by completing the square, A and B. So pause the video and see if you can solve this by yourself, and come back when you're ready for answers. Okay, are we ready? All right, so the process that we just looked at, completing the square, would be the process that you wanna use here, right? So let's look at 3a. So first of all, you have to look at the original equation. 0 is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 8. Is this a perfect square trinomial? No, because square root of 8 is not going to be a nice little integer. So we're going to subtract 8 on both sides. And then we have x squared plus 4x. But then now we need to figure out negative b over 2 squared to add, so that we can get a perfect square trinomial. So negative 4 divided by 2 squared would be negative 2 squared. And so that's going to be 4, right? So you're going to add 4 on both sides, x squared plus 4x plus 4. And you know the perfect square, the factor would be plus 2, x plus 2 squared would give you this trinomial. And if you add negative 8 plus 4, you get negative 4. And then you solve. You can keep solving by square rooting both sides, right? And then you cancel out the squares. But this one is an imaginary number. So plus or minus I square root of 4, which is just 2, would equal to x plus 2. And so you have to solve for x, which means you're going to subtract 2 on both sides, and you're going to get x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus 2i. So we're going to say x is equal to negative 2 plus 2i and negative 2 minus 2i. Okay? All right, let's look at part B. You're going to use the same method. So I'm going to minimize my explanation, but let me write it down. So 0 is equal to x squared minus 8x plus 17. Subtract 17 on both sides. And then negative b over 2 squared would be positive 8 over 2. 4 squared, so 16. You're going to add 16 on both sides. X squared minus 8x plus 16. And then that's going to be negative 1. And that's just going to be x minus 4 squared. And so your x is going to be negative. So x minus 4 is going to be plus or minus square root negative 1. So your x is going to be 4 plus I and 4 minus I. I'm gonna make a box around it. There you go. Okay, so that was example 3. Try number 3. We will continue with the next problem in the next video.